Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now let's dive into the story. Vivienne stood in the doorway of the community center on Magnolia Street, her hands trembling against the cold metal handle. She could hear the drums pounding through the walls, wild and rhythmic, shaking something loose inside her chest that had been buried for decades. At 60 years old, she'd raised 4 children alone, worked 2 jobs for 30 years, and buried a husband who never loved her the way she deserved. Now her kids were grown, her house was quiet, and the silence was killing her faster than any disease ever could. She'd signed up for this drum class 3 weeks ago on a whim after her daughter Keisha told her she looked like she was just waiting to die. The words had cut deep because they were true. Vivienne had forgotten what it felt like to want something just for herself. Inside the studio, bodies moved like water to the beat. Young people, old people, black folks, white folks, Latinos, all lost in the rhythm. But Vivienne's eyes locked on one person. The instructor stood at the front, his dark skin glistening with sweat under the fluorescent lights, his locks swinging as he played a djembe with hands that moved like they were speaking a language older than words. He couldn't have been older than 40, maybe 42 at most. His name tag read Dante. When he looked up and caught her staring, he smiled. Not the polite smile strangers give each other, but something warmer, something that made her stomach flip in a way she thought she'd forgotten. Vivienne felt ridiculous. She was too old for this, too tired, too worn down by life to feel butterflies. But then Dante walked toward her, still smiling, and held out a drum. First time? He asked, his voice smooth like bourbon over ice. Vivienne nodded, taking the drum with shaking hands. Don't worry, he said, leaning closer, close enough that she could smell cedar and something sweet like honey. The drum doesn't judge, it just listens. He guided her to a spot in the circle, and when his hand brushed her shoulder, she felt a jolt of electricity so strong she almost dropped the instrument. This was insane. She was a grandmother. She'd just turned 60 last month. Her body had stretch marks and scars and soft places where tight used to be. What was she even doing here, feeling things she had no business feeling? The class began, and Dante moved through the room like a preacher at a revival, teaching rhythms, correcting techniques, but always coming back to Vivienne. Every time he stood behind her to adjust her hands on the drum, she felt her breath catch. Every time he praised her progress, she felt something crack open inside her chest, something she'd locked away when her husband died and left her nothing but debt and 3 insurance policies he'd cashed out for his mistress. She'd spent 40 years being strong, being the rock, being the woman everyone leaned on. But here, in this room, with this man's hands guiding hers, she felt something dangerous creeping in. She felt alive, and that terrified her more than anything else. When class ended, Dante approached her again. "You've got natural rhythm," he said, his eyes holding hers a beat too long. "You should come back next week." Vivienne nodded, unable to form words, and walked out into the cool October air, feeling like a teenager who'd just been asked to prom. She climbed into her old Honda, sat in the parking lot, and let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Her phone buzzed, a text from her daughter. "Mom, you good? You've been gone for 2 hours." Vivienne stared at the message, then looked back at the community center. Through the window, she could see Dante packing up his drums, moving with that same effortless grace. She typed back, "I'm fine. better than fine. But as she drove home through the familiar streets of West Oakland, past the corner store where she'd bought her kids' school supplies and the church where she'd buried her husband, Vivienne couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just stepped off a cliff, and she had no idea if she was falling or flying. Vivienne's marriage to Marcus had been a slow death disguised as a life. They'd met when she was 19, fresh out of her mother's house in South Memphis, working at a diner on Beale Street and dreaming of college. Marcus was 25, fine as hell, with a smile that could sell ice to Alaska and promises that sounded like gospel. He promised her a house. He promised her stability. He promised her love. What he delivered with 26 years of paycheck-to-paycheck living, 4 babies she raised mostly alone, and a funeral she had to crowdfund because he'd left her with nothing but memories and medical bills. She loved him once, back when love felt like enough. But love doesn't pay rent, and it doesn't fill empty bellies or cover light bills. After Marcus died, Vivienne had thrown herself into survival mode. She worked double shifts at the hospital as a nursing assistant, then came home to her overnight job doing data entry from her dining room table. Her children had been teenagers then, angry, grieving, and looking to her for answers she didn't have. Keisha, her oldest, had dropped out of community college to work at Target. Her son Terrence had gotten mixed up with the wrong crowd and did 6 months in county jail before straightening out. The twins, Aisha and Aliyah, had made it through, but barely. Vivienne had been the glue holding everything together, but nobody ever asked who was holding her. Nobody ever asked if she was tired, if she was lonely, if she was drowning in the silence of her own life. Now at 60, her kids were grown and gone. Keisha was married with 2 kids in Sacramento. Terrence was a delivery driver living in Stockton with his girlfriend. The twins were in Atlanta, both working in tech and doing better than anyone had predicted. Vivienne's house, the same 3-bedroom she'd raised them in, felt enormous and empty. The walls echoed. The rooms smelled like old memories and pine sol. She'd started talking to herself just to hear a voice. She'd started leaving the TV on all night just to feel less alone. Her friends from church kept telling her to be grateful, to count her blessings, to praise God for bringing her through. But gratitude didn't fill the hollow space in her chest where hope used to live. Then her daughter Keisha had come to visit 3 weeks ago and found Vivienne sitting in the dark at 2 p.m, staring at nothing. "Mama, you can't keep living like this," Keisha had said, her voice breaking. "You raised us, you worked yourself to the bone for us, but we're good now. When are you gonna do something for you?" The question had hit Vivienne like a slap. Do something for herself? She didn't even know what that meant anymore. Every dream she'd ever had got buried under diapers and rent payments and Marcus's bullshit. She'd forgotten how to want things that didn't involve sacrifice. She'd forgotten how to imagine a life that was hers alone. But Keisha had pulled out her phone, found the community center flyer, and made Vivienne promise to go. "Just try it, Mama, please. Just try one thing that's yours." So Vivienne had gone. She'd walked into that drum class expecting nothing, maybe hoping for a distraction, something to fill the empty hours between waking and sleeping. She hadn't expected to feel her heart kick against her ribs when Dante smiled at her. She hadn't expected to feel seen, really seen, for the first time in decades. And now, lying in her bed at midnight, she couldn't stop thinking about the way his hands had felt on her shoulders, steady and warm, like he was grounding her to the earth. It was stupid. It was impossible. She was 20 years older than him. Her body was nothing like it used to be, and she had no business feeling the things she was feeling. But God help her. She couldn't wait for next week's class. She couldn't wait to see him again, and that realization scared her more than anything else in her life ever had. The following Tuesday arrived too fast and too slow at the same time. Vivienne spent the entire day obsessing over what to wear, which was absurd because she was going to a drum class, not a date, but she tried on 4 different outfits before settling on dark jeans that fit her curves right and a burnt orange blouse that made her brown skin glow. She twisted her silver locks into a bun, applied a little makeup, just enough to look alive, and drove to the community center with her heart hammering in her chest. The whole drive, she told herself, she was being ridiculous. She told herself this was just a class, just a hobby, just something to fill the time. But when she walked through the door and saw Dante setting up his drums, his face lighting up when he spotted her, she knew she was lying to herself. "Vivienne," he said, saying her name like it was something precious. "I'm glad you came back. I wasn't sure you would." The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. Most people assumed she'd always show up, always follow through, always be the dependable one. But Dante looked at her like her presence mattered, like he'd actually thought about whether she'd return. "Why wouldn't I?" she asked, trying to sound casual. He shrugged, his smile turning softer. "A lot of people come once and never come back. Life gets in the way. Fear gets in the way. But you've got something special. I could see it last week. You feel the rhythm in your bones, not just your hands." His words settled over her like a warm blanket, and she had to look away before he saw what they did to her. The class was bigger this week, maybe 20 people instead of 12, and Dante moved through the crowd with the same easy confidence. But Vivienne noticed something she'd missed last week. Every time he demonstrated a rhythm, his eyes found hers. Every time he offered encouragement, he paused a little longer at her spot in the circle. She told herself she was imagining it, that she was just a lonely old woman projecting her fantasies onto a man who was probably just being kind. But then the class ended, and as people filed out, Dante called her name. "Vivienne, you got a minute?" Her stomach dropped. She nodded, walking over to where he stood by the drums, suddenly feeling like a teenager called to the principal's office. "I wanted to ask you something," Dante said, his voice lower now, more intimate. "You ever played before? Like, before last week?" Vivienne shook her head. "Never. I didn't even know I liked music like this until I walked in here." He nodded slowly, his eyes searching her face like he was reading a book. "Then why'd you come? Most people sign up because they've got history with drums, or they're musicians, or they grew up around this kind of thing. But you walked in here like you were running from something, or toward something. I couldn't tell which." His perception cut through her like a blade. She opened her mouth to lie, to say something safe and non-committal, but the truth spilled out instead. "I was lonely. My daughter told me I looked like I was waiting to die, and she was right. I needed to feel something again, anything." The silence between them stretched, heavy and charged. Then Dante did something she didn't expect. He pulled up a stool and sat down, motioning for her to do the same. "I get that," he said quietly. "I've been there. After my divorce, I felt like I was sleepwalking through life. Music was the only thing that woke me up." Vivienne sat, her legs suddenly weak. "You're divorced?" she asked, the question tumbling out before she could stop. He nodded. 3 years now. My ex-wife said I loved music more than I loved her. She was probably right, but I couldn't be who she wanted me to be, and I'm done apologizing for that." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Vivienne felt something shift in the air between them, something fragile and dangerous and undeniable. "You shouldn't apologize for wanting to feel alive, Vivienne. Not to your kids, not to anyone. You've earned the right to take up space in your own life." 2 weeks passed in a blur of drum classes and stolen glances. Vivienne found herself living for Tuesdays, counting down the hours until she could walk into that studio and lose herself in the rhythms Dante taught. She was getting better, her hands moving with more confidence, her body swaying to beats she could finally hear instead of just follow. But more than the music, she was drawn to the conversations that happened after class. Brief, surface-level exchanges that hinted at depths neither of them had fully explored. Dante would ask about her week, and she'd tell him about her garden or her grandkids' latest antics. He'd share stories about gigs he played at local bars, about the students who struggled and the ones who soared. They danced around the real questions, the dangerous ones, but the tension between them grew thicker every time they spoke. Then, one Tuesday in late October, Dante caught her arm as she was leaving. "Hey, I know this is forward, but would you want to grab coffee sometime outside of class?" Vivienne's heart stopped. This was it, the moment she'd been dreading and craving in equal measure. She could say no. She could protect herself, keep this thing contained within the safe boundaries of a drum class where nothing had to be real. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw the same loneliness she felt, the same hunger for connection, the same fear of reaching out and finding nothing there. "Yes," she said, the word coming out breathless. "I'd like that." Dante's smile was so wide and genuine that it made her chest ache. "Saturday? There's a spot in Jack London Square I love. Say 11? She nodded, already regretting and anticipating it in the same breath. Saturday morning, Vivienne stood in front of her closet for an hour, paralyzed by indecision. What did you wear to coffee with a man 20 years younger who made your heart race like you were a girl again? She finally settled on a deep purple sweater dress that skimmed her curves without clinging, paired with ankle boots and her favorite silver hoops. She looked good, not trying too hard, but definitely trying. Her daughter Keisha called just as she was heading out. "Mama, where you going all dressed up?" Vivienne hesitated, then decided honesty was easier than lying. "Coffee, with a friend." Keisha's silence spoke volumes. "A friend? What kind of friend?" Vivienne laughed despite her nerves. "Just a friend, Keisha. Don't start." But Keisha's voice turned serious. "Mama, I'm happy you're getting out. Just be careful, okay? I don't want nobody taking advantage of you." The warning stung, but Vivienne understood it. She'd spent so many years being the one everyone leaned on that the idea of her being vulnerable, of her needing something from someone else, made her children nervous. They loved her, but they loved her in the role they knew. Strong, unshakable, always giving. They didn't know what to do with a version of their mother who wanted things, who felt things, who was still a woman with desires and dreams beyond being their rock. But Vivienne was tired of shrinking herself to fit their comfort. She was 60 years old, and if she couldn't take a risk now, when could she? "I'll be fine, baby," she told Keisha, her voice firmer than she felt. "I love you, but I'm grown. Let me live." She hung up before her daughter could respond, grabbed her purse, and walked out the door. Jack London Square was bustling with Saturday morning energy. Joggers, tourists, locals walking their dogs along the waterfront. Dante was already there, sitting at an outdoor table at a cafe overlooking the marina, 2 cups of coffee steaming in front of him. He stood when he saw her, that smile breaking across his face again, and Vivienne felt her knees go weak. "You look beautiful," he said, pulling out her chair like they were in some old movie. She sat, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for the coffee. "Thank you. You didn't have to buy this." He waved her off. "I wanted to. Besides, I owe you. You've been keeping me on my toes in class. You're a natural, Vivienne. I meant what I said." They talked for an hour, maybe 2, the conversation flowing easier than she'd expected. He told her about growing up in Detroit, about his Ghanaian father who taught him to play drums before he could read, about his white mother who loved jazz and filled their house with music. She told him about Memphis, about working in her grandmother's kitchen, about Marcus and the years she'd lost trying to make a marriage work that was broken from the start. And somewhere in the midst of the stories, their hands found each other across the table, just fingers touching at first, then palms pressed together, then Dante's thumb tracing slow circles on the inside of her wrist. "I like you, Vivienne," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "I know this is complicated. I know people will talk, but I can't pretend I don't feel what I feel." Vivienne's throat tightened. She wanted to say something wise, something that would protect them both from the mess this could become. But instead, she squeezed his hand and whispered, "I like you too, and that scares the hell out of me." Dante smiled, sad and understanding. "Good. If it didn't scare you, it wouldn't be real." Vivienne knew she should have kept her relationship with Dante private longer. But joy has a way of spilling out, no matter how hard you try to contain it. She mentioned him casually during Sunday dinner at Keisha's house, just a passing comment about the instructor from her drum class who'd become a friend. But Keisha's eyes narrowed immediately, and before Vivienne could finish her sentence, her daughter was firing questions like bullets. "How old is he, Mama? Where's he from? What's his situation?" Vivienne tried to laugh it off, but her son Terrence, who'd been quiet until then, leaned forward with his arms crossed. "Wait, hold up. Is this the same dude you've been going to coffee with? Aisha told me she saw you down at Jack London Square looking all cozy with some younger cat." The table went silent. Even the grandkids stopped playing to stare. Vivienne felt her face heat up, but she refused to shrink. "Yes, I've been spending time with Dante. He's a musician, he's kind, and he makes me happy. That's all you need to know." But Keisha wasn't having it. "Mama, how old is he?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Vivienne took a breath. "He's 41. The explosion was immediate. Keisha pushed her chair back so hard it scraped the floor. 41? Mama, are you serious right now? You're 60. That man is younger than me. What could he possibly want with you except... She didn't finish, but the implication landed like a slap. Vivienne stood, her hands shaking with anger and hurt. "Except what, Keisha? Money? I don't have any. Sex? You think I'm too old to be wanted? You think I'm too used up to deserve happiness?" Her voice cracked and she hated herself for it. Terrence tried to play peacemaker, his voice low and careful. "Mama, we're not saying you don't deserve to be happy. We're just worried. Dudes like that, they prey on women who are vulnerable, who are what?" Vivienne cut him off, her voice rising. "Lonely? Desperate? Is that what you think of me? That I'm so pathetic some young man has to be running a game to pay me attention?" The words tasted bitter, but they needed to be said. Her children stared at her like they didn't recognize her, and maybe they didn't. Maybe they'd never seen her as anything other than their mother, their provider, the woman who existed to serve them. But Vivienne was so much more than that, and she was done apologizing for it. "I'm leaving," she said, grabbing her purse. Keisha reached for her arm, tears streaming down her face. "Mama, please, we're just trying to protect you." Vivienne pulled away gently but firmly. "I don't need your protection, baby. I need your support. And if you can't give me that, then I need space." She walked out of her daughter's house and sat in her car for 10 minutes, sobbing so hard she couldn't see the road. This was what she'd been afraid of, not just her children's judgment, but the way their words confirmed her own fears. What if Dante was just being kind? What if he did see her as a charity case, a lonely older woman to pity? What if she was making a fool of herself, chasing something that was never really there? Her phone buzzed. A text from Dante. How was dinner with the family? She almost didn't respond, almost let the doubt win, but then she remembered the way he looked at her, the way his hand felt in hers, the way he listened when she talked like her words actually mattered. She typed back, "It was complicated. Can I call you?" His response was immediate, always. They talked for 2 hours, Vivienne sitting in her car in Keisha's driveway, pouring out everything, the accusations, the tears, the fear that maybe her kids were right. Dante listened without interrupting. And when she finally ran out of words, he spoke with a gentleness that made her chest ache. Vivienne, I can't tell you what to do. If this is too hard, if it's causing you too much pain, I'll understand, but I need you to know something. I'm not with you because I'm confused or looking for a mother figure or trying to prove something. I'm with you because you're brilliant and funny and beautiful, and being around you makes me want to be better. Your age doesn't scare me. It's one of the things I love most about you. You know who you are. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're just real. Vivienne closed her eyes, letting his words wash over her. My kids think I'm being naive. Dante's laugh was soft. Maybe. Or maybe they're scared of seeing you as a whole person instead of just their mom. Either way, that's their work to do, not yours. 3 weeks passed with Vivienne and Dante navigating a relationship that existed in stolen moments. Coffee dates that stretched into lunch, long phone calls that lasted past midnight, drum classes where their eyes found each other across the room like magnets. But they hadn't crossed certain lines yet. They hadn't kissed, hadn't touched beyond hand-holding, hadn't let the simmering tension between them boil over into something they couldn't take back. Vivienne told herself she was being smart, protecting her heart, moving slow. But the truth was she was terrified of being vulnerable, terrified of being seen fully, terrified that once Dante saw all of her, the stretch marks, the softness, the years, he'd realize he'd made a mistake. But everything changed the night of his performance at Yoshi's in Oakland. Dante had invited her weeks ago, his eyes bright with excitement as he described the show, a tribute to West African drumming traditions with his ensemble. Vivienne almost said no, afraid to step too fully into his world, afraid to be seen with him in public where people might stare or whisper or judge. But Keisha's words had been haunting her. When are you going to do something for you? So she'd bought a new dress, emerald green, fitted but elegant, with 3/4 sleeves that showed off the silver bangles she loved. She'd taken her locks down, letting them fall loose around her shoulders, and when she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked alive. She looked like a woman who'd remembered how to want things, and that woman was ready to be seen. The club was packed when she arrived, the air thick with anticipation and the smell of good food. Vivienne found a seat near the stage, her heart racing as the lights dimmed and Dante walked out with his ensemble. 5 drummers, 3 dancers, all moving like they'd been born to this rhythm. And then Dante started playing and Vivienne forgot how to breathe. His hands moved across the jamma like lightning, pulling sounds from the drum she didn't know were possible. His body swayed, his locks flying, sweat glistening on his skin under the stage lights. He was transcendent, completely lost in the music, and watching him was like witnessing someone speak directly to God. She'd never seen anything so beautiful in her life. And then, mid-song, he looked up and found her in the crowd, and his smile, his smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. After the show, people swarmed him, congratulating him, asking questions, requesting photos. Vivienne hung back, suddenly feeling out of place in this world of artists and musicians who spoke a language she didn't fully understand. But Dante cut through the crowd like it wasn't even there, walking straight to her, and without a word, he took her hand and pulled her outside into the cool November air. They stood on the sidewalk, the muffled sound of music and laughter drifting through the walls, and Dante looked at her with an intensity that made her knees weak. "I played that whole set for you," he said, his voice rough. "Every beat, every rhythm, it was all for you." Vivienne's throat tightened. "Dante, But he stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat coming off his body, and cupped her face in his hands. "I need to kiss you, Vivienne. I've needed to kiss you since the day you walked into my class, looking lost and scared and beautiful. But I need to know you want this too. Not because you're lonely, not because you're trying to prove something to your kids, but because you want me the way I want you." His words hung in the air, a question and a confession all at once. Vivienne felt tears prick her eyes, all her fears and doubts rising up like a wave. But beneath the fear was something stronger. Desire, yes, but also hope. Hope that maybe she wasn't too old, too broken, too worn down by life to deserve this kind of passion. Hope that maybe Dante saw her the way she was starting to see herself again, not as a grandmother or a widow or a woman whose best days were behind her, but as someone still capable of inspiring love. So she did the bravest thing she'd done in 40 years. She rose on her toes, wrapped her arms around his neck, and kissed him like her life depended on it. Vivienne woke up in Dante's bed the next morning wrapped in soft gray sheets that smelled like cedar and something distinctly him. Sunlight filtered through sheer curtains, painting golden stripes across the hardwood floors of his loft apartment in downtown Oakland. For a moment, she didn't move, just lay there listening to Dante's breathing beside her, feeling the warmth of his arm draped across her waist. They'd made love last night, slow and tender and earth-shattering in ways she'd forgotten were possible. He touched her like she was precious, like every scar and stretch mark was a map he wanted to memorize. And when it was over, when they lay tangled together in the dark, he'd whispered against her hair, "I'm falling in love with you, Vivienne." She hadn't said it back, not yet, but she felt it blooming in her chest like spring flowers after a long winter. But now in the clear light of morning, doubt crept in. What was she doing here? She was 60 years old, a grandmother, a woman whose body had carried 4 babies and 40 years of struggle. What could she possibly offer a man like Dante? Vital, talented, with his whole life still ahead of him. She slipped out of bed carefully, trying not to wake him, and padded to the bathroom. The mirror showed her the truth she'd been avoiding. The lines around her eyes, the silver in her hair, the way gravity had done its work on her body. She looked like someone's grandmother because that's what she was. And standing here in Dante's space, surrounded by his records and instruments and the evidence of a life still in motion, she felt like an imposter, like she was playing dress up in someone else's love story. "You're doing that thing again." Dante's voice came from the doorway, soft but knowing. Vivienne turned to find him leaning against the frame, wearing nothing but boxer briefs, his locks messy from sleep, looking at her with eyes full of understanding. "What thing?" she asked, her voice small. He crossed the space between them and turned her to face the mirror, standing behind her with his hands on her shoulders. That thing where you pick yourself apart, where you convince yourself you're not enough." He met her eyes in the reflection, his expression serious. "I see you, Vivienne. Not the version of you that your kids need or that your husband didn't appreciate. I see the woman who walked into my class scared but brave. I see the woman who laughs at my terrible jokes and cries during movies and plays drums like she's channeling her ancestors. That's who I'm falling for. Not some fantasy, not some idea. You." Vivienne's eyes filled with tears. "You could have anyone, Dante. Someone younger, someone without all this baggage, someone who..." He turned her around, cutting off her words with a kiss. When he pulled back, his expression was fierce. "I don't want anyone, I want you. And yeah, people are gonna talk. Your kids might never accept this. My friends already think I'm crazy, but I've spent too much of my life living for other people's approval. I'm 41 years old, Vivienne, and I know what I want. And what I want is to build something real with you, if you'll let me." His words were a lifeline, and Vivienne grabbed hold with both hands. She let herself believe him, let herself imagine a future where this wasn't just a beautiful mistake, but the beginning of something true. They spent the morning in his kitchen, making breakfast, scrambled eggs, turkey sausage, toast with jam, moving around each other with an easy intimacy that felt both brand new and ancient. But the real world came crashing back when Vivienne's phone rang just after noon. It was her daughter, Aisha, one of the twins, calling from Atlanta. Mama, we need to talk. Keisha told us everything and we're worried about you. This man, this Dante, we looked him up. Did you know he was married before? Did you know his ex-wife accused him of being emotionally unavailable? What if he's using you, Mama? What if Vivienne cut her off, her voice steady despite the anger rising in her chest? What if he's not Aisha? What if he's just a good man who sees me as more than your mama? What if I deserve to be loved without it being some kind of scam? Silence on the other end, then Aisha's voice, small and scared. We just don't want you to get hurt, Vivienne softened. I know, baby, but I'm already hurt. I've been hurt for years, walking around half alive, pretending I was fine, and now I'm not pretending anymore. I need you to trust me to make my own choices, even if you don't understand them. The call ended with an easy peace, but Vivienne knew this was just the beginning. Her children would keep pushing, keep questioning, keep trying to protect her from a danger they couldn't see wasn't real. But as she hung up and turned to find Dante watching her from the couch, his expression full of quiet support, she made a decision. She was done living small, done apologizing for taking up space in her own life, done letting other people's fears dictate her choices. She walked over to Dante, climbed into his lap, and kissed him with all the defiance and hope and love she'd been holding back. I'm in, she whispered against his mouth. I don't know where this goes, but I'm in. Dante's arms tightened around her. That's all I need to hear. And for the first time in 40 years, Vivienne believed that maybe, just maybe, her happily ever after was still possible. Thanksgiving arrived like a storm Vivienne couldn't avoid. Keisha had called 3 times insisting she host dinner at her house in Sacramento. And Vivienne knew what that meant. Her children wanted to confront her as a united front, wanted to talk sense into her before she threw her life away on Dante. Vivienne had tried to decline, suggested she'd stay in Oakland this year, but Keisha's voice had cracked with tears. Mama, please, we're family. Whatever's going on, we need to face it together. So Vivienne agreed, but with one condition. Dante was coming with her. The silence on the other end of the phone had been deafening, but eventually Keisha agreed. Fine. Bring him. Let us meet this man who's got you acting like you're 20 years old again. The words stung, but Vivienne swallowed the hurt and confirmed they'd be there by 3. The drive to Sacramento was tense, despite Dante's attempts to lighten the mood with music and bad jokes. Vivienne kept her hands twisted in her lap, her stomach churning with anxiety about what was coming. She'd warned Dante about her children's concerns, about their protective instincts, and their inability to see her as anything other than their mother. But Dante had just squeezed her hand and said, I can handle it. I faced tougher crowds than your kids. Still, when they pulled up to Keisha's suburban house with its perfect lawn and holiday decorations, Vivienne felt like she was walking into battle. Her children were waiting on the porch, all 4 of them, plus Keisha's husband, Marcus Jr., and a few of the grandkids. The sight of them standing there, arms crossed, faces serious, made Vivienne want to turn the car around and drive straight back to Oakland, but Dante was already getting out, grabbing the sweet potato pies Vivienne had made and walking toward the house with confidence she wished she could borrow. You must be Keisha, he said, extending his hand with that easy smile that had first caught Vivienne's attention. I've heard so much about you. Your mom talks about you all the time, how proud she is, how hard you work. Keisha looked at his hand like it might bite her, but eventually she shook it, her expression guarded. The rest of the afternoon was a careful dance of forced politeness and barely concealed tension. Dinner was a production: turkey, ham, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread, all the traditional dishes Vivienne had taught her daughters to make. But every bite tasted like sand in Vivienne's mouth as she felt her children's eyes on her and Dante, watching, judging, waiting for proof that this relationship was the mistake they believed it to be. Then, as Vivienne was clearing plates, Terrence stood up and cleared his throat. Dante, can I talk to you outside? It wasn't a request. Vivienne started to protest, but Dante touched her arm gently. It's okay, he said. Your son has every right to ask me questions. The two men walked out to the backyard, and Vivienne stood at the kitchen window watching them, her heart in her throat. She could see Terrence's aggressive posture, the way he gestured sharply, could imagine the accusations flying. But Dante stood there, calm and steady, letting Terrence say his piece. Then Dante started talking, and whatever he said made Terrence's shoulders drop slightly, his stance less combative. They talked for 20 minutes, and when they came back inside, Terrence looked shaken but quieter, like something fundamental had shifted. Mama, he said, pulling her aside. He loves you, like, really loves you. I still don't get it, and I'm still worried, but he's not playing games. I can see that now. The confession broke something open in the room. Keisha started crying, then Aisha, then even tough as nails Aaliyah got. Terry. They gathered around Vivienne in the kitchen, all talking at once, apologizing for judging her, for trying to control her, for forgetting that she was a person with needs and dreams beyond being their mother. We were scared, Mama, Keisha sobbed. Scared that someone would hurt you, scared that we'd lose you to this new life, scared that you didn't need us anymore. Vivienne pulled her daughter close, her own tears flowing freely. Baby, I'll always need you, but I need to need myself too. I need to remember who I was before I became your mama, before I became Marcus's wife. I need to remember that I'm Vivienne, and Vivienne deserves love, real love, the kind that sees me and chooses me anyway. They held each other for a long time, the years of unspoken pain and sacrifice and love all pouring out in that cramped Sacramento kitchen while the turkey got cold and the grandkids played in the living room, and Dante waited patiently, knowing that this healing needed to happen without him. Winter hit Oakland hard that December, bringing rain that turned the streets slick and filled the sky with heavy gray clouds that matched Vivienne's mood. Things had been good, better than good, since Thanksgiving. Her children were slowly coming around, calling more often, asking about Dante, even inviting them both to Christmas dinner. Vivienne had started spending most nights at Dante's loft, her toothbrush claiming space in his bathroom, her clothes mingling with his in the closet. They'd fallen into a rhythm that felt like the beginning of forever. But life has a way of testing love when it starts feeling too easy. And the test came on a Friday night in mid-December when Dante's ex-wife showed up at his door unannounced, and Vivienne was there to witness it. The knock came just after 10, and when Dante opened the door, a petite white woman with blonde hair and red-rimmed eyes stood in the hallway holding a bottle of wine. Simone, Dante said, his voice tight with surprise. What are you doing here? Simone's eyes slid past him to where Vivienne sat on the couch, and something cold flashed across her face. I needed to talk to you. I didn't realize you'd have company. The word company dripped with disdain, and Vivienne felt her spine stiffen. Dante stepped outside, pulling the door mostly closed, but Vivienne could hear fragments of their conversation. Simone's pleading tone, something about mistakes and second chances, and we were good together, Dante. You know we were. Vivienne sat frozen, her mind racing. This was it. This was the moment Dante would realize what a mistake he'd made, choosing a 60-year-old woman over his age-appropriate ex-wife. But then the door opened, and Dante came back in alone, his face tight with anger. I'm sorry you had to witness that, he said, crossing to Vivienne and taking her hands. She's been calling me for weeks, and I've been ignoring her. I should have told you, but I didn't want to worry you about something that didn't matter. Vivienne tried to keep her voice steady. Maybe it does matter, Dante. Maybe you need to figure out if there's still something there before you... He cut her off with a kiss, fierce and desperate. There's nothing there, Vivienne. She left me, remember? She said I'd never change. that I was married to my music, that she wanted a different life, and she was right. I couldn't be who she needed, but with you, I don't have to be anyone but myself. You don't want to change me, you just want to be with me. That's everything. His words should have been enough, but doubt had taken root in Vivienne's chest. Over the next week, she pulled back slightly, creating space between them that Dante felt but didn't understand. She stopped staying over as often, made excuses about needing to be home, answered his calls, but kept the conversations brief. She told herself she was protecting both of them, giving him room to figure out what he really wanted. But the truth was she was scared that Simone's arrival had reminded Dante of what a normal relationship looked like. Two people the same age, with the same cultural references, the same energy levels, the same amount of future stretching ahead of them. How could Vivienne compete with that? How could she ask Dante to choose her when she came with so much baggage and so many complications? The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday night, a week before Christmas. Vivienne was at home, having declined Dante's invitation to come over, when her doorbell rang. She opened it to find him standing there drenched, his locks dripping water, his eyes fierce. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded, pushing past her into the house. "Why are you pulling away from me?" Vivienne wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the heater running. "I'm giving you space to think clearly, Dante, to figure out if this is really what you want, if you're just what?" he interrupted, his voice rise. "Running away from my ex? Using you as a rebound? Is that what you think this is?" The pain in his voice cut through her. "I don't know what to think. Your ex-wife showed up talking about second chances, and you're here with me, and what if in 5 years or 10 years you wake up and realize you made a mistake? What if you look at me, really look at me, and see an old woman instead of the person you thought you loved?" The silence that followed was deafening. Then Dante crossed the room, took Vivienne's face in his hands, and spoke with a clarity that left no room for doubt. I see you, Vivienne. I see every line on your face, every gray hair, every year you've lived. And I love all of it. I love that you've survived things I can't imagine. I love that you raised 4 children alone. I love that you're still here, still fighting, still brave enough to take a chance on love, even though it scares you. Yes, Simone came back. And yes, she's my age. And yes, dating her would be easier in some ways. But I don't want easy. I want you. And if you can't believe that, if you can't trust that I know my own heart, then maybe we do need to stop. But don't make that decision for me. Don't push me away because you're scared. Let me choose you. Please. Vivienne broke then, all her fears and doubts and pain pouring out in sobs that shook her whole body. And Dante held her through it, whispering against her hair, "I choose you. I choose you. I choose you." Until she finally believed him. 6 months later, on a warm June evening, Vivienne stood in the community center where it had all begun, watching Dante teach a drum class to a new group of nervous beginners. But this time, she wasn't in the circle. She was in the back of the room, setting up chairs and tables for the reception that would follow. The reception celebrating their wedding. They'd gotten married that afternoon at Oakland City Hall, with just her children, a few close friends, and Dante's parents in attendance. It had been small and simple and perfect, exactly what they both wanted. Keisha had cried through the whole ceremony, but happy tears this time. And afterward, she'd pulled Vivienne aside and whispered, "I get it now, Mama. I see how he looks at you, and I'm sorry I almost made you miss this." The apology had meant everything. The journey to this moment hadn't been easy. There had been more hard conversations, more moments of doubt, more nights when Vivienne had questioned whether she was being selfish wanting this kind of love at her age. But Dante had been patient, steady, showing up every single day with a consistency that gradually wore down her fears. He'd met her grandchildren and won them over with his terrible dad jokes and his willingness to get on the floor and play. He'd helped her plant a garden in her backyard, his hands gentle with the seedlings. He'd held her when she cried about Marcus and the years she'd lost, never jealous, just present. And slowly, Vivienne had learned to accept what he'd been offering all along: unconditional love. Not despite her age, not despite her past, but because of everything that made her who she was. Now, as she watched him teach in the way he taught her a year ago, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This man had walked into her life when she'd been convinced her story was over, convinced that at 60 she'd used up all her chances at happiness. But Dante had shown her a different truth, that life doesn't have an expiration date on joy, that love can show up at any age in any form, and that the bravest thing you can do is stay open to it. Some of her church friends still whispered about the age gap. Some people in the grocery store did double takes when they held hands. But Vivienne had stopped caring what strangers thought. Her children supported them. Her real friends celebrated them. And most importantly, she learned to validate herself, to trust her own judgment, to believe she deserved good things. The class ended and Dante made his way to the back of the room, his face lighting up when he saw Vivienne arranging flowers. "Mrs. Johnson," he said, using her new last name with obvious pride. "You ready for this party?" She smiled, pulling him close for a kiss that made a few of the remaining students whistle. "Well, I'm ready for everything," she said, and she meant it. They talked about the future, about traveling to Ghana to visit Dante's family, about eventually moving into a bigger place together, about continuing to teach drum classes as a team. They'd even talked about the hard stuff, about aging, about what happens when Vivienne needs more care than she does now, about making sure both of them felt seen and supported as they navigated the reality of their age difference. But those conversations didn't scare her anymore because they were having them together. The reception was loud and joyful, filled with music and dancing and love. Vivienne's children gave speeches that made everyone laugh and cry. Dante's father played a traditional Ghanaian blessing on his drum. And when Dante and Vivienne had their first dance to a slow, sultry jazz number that made Vivienne's hips sway, she looked around at all the faces watching them with love and support, and she felt something she'd never expected to feel again. She felt young. Not young in years, but young in spirit, young in possibility, young in the knowledge that her story wasn't over. It was just beginning a new chapter. As Dante whispered in her ear, "I love you forever," Vivienne closed her eyes and let herself fall completely into the moment, into the music, into the arms of the man who'd reminded her that 60 wasn't an ending. It was permission to finally, truly live. And God help her, she was going to live loudly, boldly, and without apology for every beautiful year she had left.